thank you, obviously, again for joining and being gracious with your time to spend, the next 35 minutes talking about, the analytical skills that, we believe are useful for fund marketing teams. And there's a real reason why I've kind of thought that this would be a useful topic. And that's really kind of, it talks about, is really because, most marketing people are not analytics. And, most marketing teams are driven by creative, they're driven by, the artists, and, the artistic part of what we do, creating great copy, creating, great, graphical work, great websites, great fact sheets. But the challenge then is that, we are all as marketers answering to, the head of sales, the head of business, people at the C-level who are generally, economists, and all they want to know is, well, it's a pretty picture, but, how has that helped us raise AUM? And that becomes a challenge and becomes an increasingly harder challenge when you're looking for budget and when you're looking for, a pay rise. And, that was the challenge I used to face when I was working as a marketer in the hedge fund space. And I was kind of thinking, 20 years ago, how can we make, how can marketing have an impact on the asset raising process? And that's really, where, our product has come from. Our product is all about how can you use digital marketing to identify new investment and also at the same time, track, are there any risks of redemption? And, it seemed like far-fetched when I first had this idea, but, over 20 years and, 200 clients later, it actually kind of makes sense. And it really is the armory of a marketing team to kind of transition into this kind of analytical world. So analytics, and, when we talk about analytics, most people are talking about dashboards. They talk about dashboards and data. They talk about big data and more big data, blah, blah, blah. And the trouble with data is that as marketers now, we are collecting data from so many more points now. So we are collecting data through the website, through online events, through social media, through inbound, outbound marketing, Zoom calls. I mean, post-COVID, the whole world has, from one digital touch point, which was your email marketing, so your fact sheets and, your estimates, to now where there's so much more data. And processing that data has almost been like the biggest challenge that marketers have faced. And not only making that data, collecting that data, making that data actionable for the sales team. So, I was actually speaking to somebody recently did COVID, and the whole lockdown, did that change your world? Now, we've been, a bit like preaching in the desert that this is the most important thing a fund marketer should do: collect data, analyze data, and then, create calls to action for the sales team or the IR team. I think COVID accelerated that, but especially in the fund marketing world, people weren't ready for it. And in as much as they weren't prepared with, not pretty much the technology, because lots of, salesmen are going to sell you snake oil to say, oh yeah, this is what you need to do for digital marketing. But the real skill set and was missing. And the reason is, it is purely, anatomical, is because we have an analytical brain, which is the CEOs types and the economist type and the portfolio managers. And we have the marketing brain, right? So, we're all kind of a little bit emotional, we like being creative. We like telling stories. We like to imagine. And we are, a little absent-minded. And that's just the nature of the beast. And when, a team is, a marketing team is actually fighting, I use the word fighting because we are fighting for, a seat at the table in the company, it's a challenge. And it's always been a challenge. And marketing I think the opening passage of my book is all about, what happens when things go wrong at a fund. Well, very simple. You stop business travel, you stop biscuits in the meeting rooms, and you just get rid of marketing. So marketing has always had this challenge, but what I'm hopefully going to demonstrate today is just with a few very basic skills and a few basic tools, you can kind of overcome that and really show value of what marketing is doing in the asset raising process. So ultimately, whatever marketing you do, just focus on two things. Is your marketing raising assets? And is your marketing preserving assets? And how are you tracking that information? Because ultimately, that is how a fund manager will kind of rate the marketing. Okay, back in the mind, they'll say, oh yeah, the click-throughs are great. The PowerPoint looks amazing. Oh, the website rebrand. Oh, wow, that's so good. Really what they care about is how you're raising assets. So let's go into some of that. So the 4 topics we're going to talk about today are around what tools do you need, how to integrate your analytics, how to analyze analytics effectively, and that's a bit of a mouthful, and then how do you create actionable business data. Okay, so the most basic tool that you need when you are doing digital marketing as a fund, good old Excel. And this Excel that I'm showing you here is what we use internally at ProFundCom. And lots of our clients have looked at this and said, oh, wow, can we get this? And if you ask me nicely, when we send the replay, I'll send you the spreadsheet. And what this spreadsheet basically does, it captures a bunch of data points from your website, from your LinkedIn, from your Twitter, and from your email. And these are all of, with a little bit of Googling, you can just pull this information out once a month and put it in your spreadsheet. And what that gives you the ability to do is actually to see how are you trending on various social media platforms, on various digital platforms. And if you've got an investor portal, you can pull that data in too. If you are on Morningstar, Broadridge, or any of their platforms, or any distribution platforms like Allocator, you can pull that data in. And the great thing is, once you've set it up, it's just a disciplined process. It could not be easier. It could not be easier. And if you're not doing this already, this is a really good starting point to see how you're, I would say it's kind of difficult to say how your funds are performing, but more importantly, how is your marketing, digital marketing outreach? Are more people engaging with you for your brand awareness? Because don't forget, marketing, and if you don't know this, write it down, is 2 parts. It's demand generation and it's brand awareness. And I only learned that this weekend. So demand generation is kind of all the kind of outbound, webinars that you do, meet the managers that you do, roadshows that you do, while brand is kind of all the other stuff that goes with it. So the tweets, the LinkedIn posts, and all that kind of stuff. So remember, they're both different. I'm only sharing that because I only learned it, after 25 years in the industry, you'd think I'd know it by now, but no, I don't. So that just be aware of that. So this is really good to kind of see how, your marketing activities, your marketing budget is performing across, different media, and a really good report so you can see month on month how you're performing. Again, all available in Excel. Where people really mess up with this is because marketers are not the most disciplined in the world, there are gaps in the data. So to avoid that, it's just worth putting a reminder in your calendar. Super simple to do, easy win. Okay. Now, the next thing to look at is Google Analytics. So most people, I'm sure you've got Excel. If you don't have Excel, come talk to me after class. But Google Analytics, everybody's using Google Analytics. And most people say, oh yeah, I've got Google Analytics on my website. Oh, what's it telling you? Oh, how many people have visited my website? Okay, How many new visitors? Okay, that's great. But what other things can you do with that data? So one of the most useful parts of Google Analytics that's, again, available for free is what's called within Google Studio is which pages are getting the most traction. Now, that's quite good when you know which pages are getting the most traction. But what you can then do is there are a few products out there that let you build word clouds from a web page. And what you can then do is you can then basically look at all your Google data and actually see what themes are resonating around your website. And so with us at ProFundCom, and I'm only, kind of showing you what we do just to convince everyone that we eat our own dog food, is that we know from our own website and pulling in Google Analytic data is that our word cloud tells us the things that most people are interested the most on our website are digital marketing, financial services, case studies, private equity, fund marketing strategy, and that is gold for us. So there's a lot of content we generate around fund marketing strategy. And that's what you'll find is once you start pulling your data out of Google Analytics, looking at what pages are the most read, using a word cloud product, and the product that we use is called Monkey Learn, and it's a free product to use, and it allows you to build these word clouds. Super useful, knowing that you've got the ability to actually even see the smaller things that are trending around your web real estate. Now, obviously, I can see already that there are lots of big managers who are attending this webinar. So thank you very much for joining. And you'll have tools like Seismic, you'll have Adobe, you'll have like Katosis, not Katosis, you'll have, Power BI and all these kind of products out there. And you're going to spend a lifetime configuring it. And, what I've just kind of shown you now, yes, absolutely, invest in those products, do what you've got to do. But to get a very, very quick return on investment or, start making exceptional gains in how you are perceived within your marketing team, having these two reports, the Excel report and the thematic analysis that I've shown you right now, call it thematic analysis because it sounds complicated and clever enough that as opposed to a word cloud, that it just kind of gives you some real insights into what's working and what's not working. And, as Einstein said, madness is, doing the same thing again and expecting a different result. So it really helps you early on in your marketing journey to see what areas to focus on. And then you can then convince people to say, look, this is where we need to apply budget to. So that is kind of the world of what's kind of easy to implement. The other thing, you've got products out there, if you want to be a little more sophisticated, like Power BI and Tableau. And what the beauty of these products is that if your data is correctly collated and stored and normalized in a database, you've got the ability to start querying the data. So what we've built here, and this is in real time, by the way, you can actually see how your digital marketing is performing, how that actually has corresponded to the inflows in the business. You've actually got the ability to see, okay, which funds are performing better than others from our marketing campaigns. And again, live data is saying, well, the ESG one is performing the best, followed by the Global Tech Fund, which, no surprise there. And, you can and what's really good about these dashboards, these interactive dashboards where you can really drill down into the data is you get away from this. You get away from these the dashboard, these one-dimensional dashboards that people build that say, well, we've all sat there, right? And here's a dashboard. Here's some KPIs. What is it telling us? And that's about it. You don't have the ability to actually use that digital data and drill down further into it. So if you wanted to know, for example, what's your global reach of your funds, you've got the ability to do that. Okay, so that's the dashboard trap, as I like to call it. So those are the tools that most people tend to use. The next challenge is, well, the challenge is you've got so many digital channels, okay? So for every digital channel, you need some kind of technology, right? You need something for the social, you need something for your SEO, you need something for your email, you need CRM, content, analytics. I mean, already, this is, things that they didn't teach you at marketing school or at creative design writing or anything. Here it is. And the challenge now becomes there are so many marketing parts, moving parts in this marketing mix, is that, it's actually got a name. It's called MarTech and your MarTech stack. And immediately now, not only are you going to have a marketing team, you're engaging with the sales team and the IR team, you're now dealing with IT. So the challenge then becomes, well, to get all this data together, you've actually got to integrate various parts of this journey that somebody has with you. And then you kind of get to the point where it's all a cost. So what marketers fail to realize is the more channels you add, the more cost you start to build out. The more cost to build out, the harder it is to demonstrate ROI. The harder it is actually to implement and demonstrate that you've got the ability to have some real business insights. And how do you connect all this together? And the worst part of the integration journey is, and this is proven time and time again, is the more channels a marketing team has, every channel, they lose 15 to 20% efficiency. So if you've got 5 channels, you are borderline 100% inefficient. And that's because you're spending all your time building out integrations. And whether you're coding this integration with your IT team or you're writing, what they call no-code integrations like Zapier and MuleSoft, you still need to code. You're actually stop being a marketer. And if you've got people in your marketing team who can build out stuff, absolutely fine. But most fund managers that we work with, who are kind of under the, probably under the 50 billion mark, have very, very constrained, under-budgeted, under-resourced, under-budgeted, overworked teams that really don't have the headspace for this, and it's a downward spiral. So that is kind of the world where kind of we've come in and we've kind of said, and I say we've come in like we showed up yesterday, 20 years and almost one divorce later, we are kind of where we are now, where we've kind of built out something that what we hope marketers can find is the ability to have all these kind of analytics delivered out of the box. Now, it's not because we had a great idea one day. It's because as time's gone on, people and our clients have kind of had a journey from email to social to investor portal, to online presence, and all that journey has to be collated at some point. And whilst you can do it piecemeal, our view has been, well, ultimately, if we can provide a platform that gives all this information to you with a very, very, very light touch from the marketing team, surely that's going to be beneficial. And believe it or not, nobody cared, because IT needed to do stuff, marketing couldn't be bothered. And because sales don't care about marketing because they're all so ego-led, why bother? So nothing really ever got integrated. And, the longer an integration project takes, the better for the people and the contractors who are doing that. And it doesn't help the marketing team. So we're kind of saying, right, how can we help the marketing team to get these analytics on day one? And that's what the out-of-the-box stuff we've created. And then once you've got this stuff out of the box, is to say, how do we analyze this? So obviously, the slide I showed you previously, you've got the ability to trend, and you'd want to trend how your website's performing, how your social's performing, how your emails are performing month on month, and being able to drill down on that. But more importantly, is the ability to say, as a marketing team, how many new prospects have we generated? How many of those are active? How many have we reached out to? And how many new opportunities have we created? Because this is really what, marketing, post-COVID, whatever you want to call it, has come down to. And being able to create this kind of data is incredibly useful for the business, incredibly useful for the marketing teams, because then you can actually see month on month, are your activities working? And also, now that you're creating opportunities, you should then be able to have the ability to say, okay, who are these opportunities? So once you've kind of created these, you've actually worked out, what your cross-channel ROI is. So across all your channels, how are you performing? That doesn't live in lots of spreadsheets, that lives in one place. The information that's available, like how many new opportunities have been created, it just becomes a distribution exercise, right? It just becomes the ability, right? We know who our new opportunities are. We know where they're at. We know who they are. Email them, send them in a spreadsheet, give it to the sales team, embed it in the CRM, do something like that. So all of a sudden, very, very quickly, the organizational dots are joined together. And, I know most CEOs I talk to are all about, and those that have done an MBA say, oh, we need sales and marketing and IT aligned. Well, actually, no. What you need is marketing being aligned behind sales, feeding sales lead, creating demand and creating brand awareness. And that's really where marketing needs to fit. And aligning everything together, actually, it sounds great, right? But actually does not work. And this is where this kind of report really, really makes a difference. And if you can build this out in Excel, fantastic. We do this if anyone's interested. But having this data to hand, however way you get it, is critical in how you really show. This is just it's a secret, not a secret to me, but demonstrating this level of digital and analytical skill kind of moves you up in kind of the I was going to say marketing pecking order, but let's go with that. And the other thing as well is, like a theme cloud as well, taking all your digital assets and knowing what themes are working and what themes aren't working. And again, a real great way to focus your mind on, getting the most value from where you are spending, your money, but more importantly, where you're spending your time. So having that data to hand, it's then looking at how this data trends over time. Things like, is your engagements going up? Are people even interested? Is your distribution list growing? Is your list collection working? Are people leaving their details with you because they're interested? Are your emails convincing? Is your content engaging? What are people getting tired of what you're sending them? And quality of data. All this, it feeds into that digital marketing mix and into those digital analytics. And these are the screenshots from our product. I'm not saying you have to use us, and I hate saying to people, it's available in our product. It is, but you can build this out in Excel should you want to. And ultimately, this report that you're looking at now came from one of our clients who built it out in Excel. And I said, no, don't do that. Let us do that for you. So the data is all real time. So again, what I'm hopefully showing you here is I'm not trying to convince you to buy our product. I mean, I have a very happy life without customers. Let me start again. I have a very happy life with the customers I have. But the point is really just to educate what you guys should be looking at when you're looking at digital marketing and the analytics that sit behind it. And finally, it's to look at, how does your marketing compare with your peer group? So, knowing, so obviously knowing that your marketing is doing well is one thing, based on your internal data, but the ability to compare it to your peers in the industry is, again, incredibly useful. Now, we're very lucky is that, again, in our product, we actually compare how your data benchmarks against, other funds, other wealth managers, other private banks, other asset managers. So we've got the ability to do that. Other products are available that do that. Beacon from White Marble do it as well. And I think Zoom Info can provide you with some data. Alexis Online allows you to compare how your website performs to others. Other services are available to do that. And again, it's very, very useful to know, once you can pat yourself on the back that, we're doing better month on month, how do we compare to the industry? And again, it's very, very useful for that pay rise to say, hey, we're smashing it out of the park. It's also very useful if you start to migrate into a slightly analytical mindset, is the ability to say, okay, what can we do better? And, my own experience has been most mature marketers, and I'm kind of using that word loosely. Let's say people who've been on the cycle have actually realized the best marketers are the ones that do the most experiments and fail the most. And that helps them work out what's working and what's not working. And, so we at ourselves, and we know if we've got customers who are very, very good at marketing, they've always got something new quarter on quarter. And they then know, does it work? Does it not work? And they're constantly running that experiment whilst doing what they're doing already. So it's really worth looking at that. And, looking at, when you're online, a newsletter comes through, or you're online and there's a campaign, if you're offline and there's an event that you think, oh, that'd be really good if we ran that, is again a real superpower for marketing teams to have, because you've got, with digital analytics, you've got the ability to say, does that work? Does that not work? You see? So really, 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 really useful to know your data. Okay, so hopefully that helps you look at how you analyze data without being a data scientist. So coming to the very last topic on our webinar is, how do you, and pretty much on the half hour, how do you leverage this data into actionable business data? Is it business data? Business actions, something like that. But you know what I mean. How do you give this data to your sales team? How can you give this data to your sales team and say to them, right, I'm giving you data that's going to help you raise assets, and I'm going to send you data that's going to help you preserve AUM. So we're going to stop money walking out the door. And the way we've kind of gone about this is we've kind of gone about it by, embedding this data in a CRM. And what this allows, customers to do is it gives them the ability, when it plays, is it playing? I don't think it's playing. Oh, there you go. That's a glitch for you guys. So let me see if I can get this to play. Ah, here we go. Got it playing. So what this allows you to do, it allows you to go into a CRM. A salesperson can go in, see everyone's digital activity, see what they've been engaged in, see what they've been trending at over time, and then effectively from that information, make a sales call. So it's not about calling somebody from A to Z or Z to A or somewhere in the middle. A salesperson can actually see what somebody has been engaging with. And effectively from that, a salesperson can then say, right, I'm not talking about the weather. I'm not talking about the football. I'm not talking about, England beating Germany in the ladies' Euros, come on England. We're not talking about that. We're talking about things that they're interested in. But the trouble with that is that, who do you call? And that's why we've come up with what you're looking at now as our lead deck. And our lead deck allows a salesperson to go in and categorize the people that are engaging. So it categorizes them as low-hanging fruit, as cross-selling opportunities, as redemption risk, and as marketing alpha. And what this does, it basically takes their contacts' digital behavior and allows you to drill down to see, this contact has been on LinkedIn, they've been on Twitter, they've been downloading fact sheets, they've been on the website, they've been on a Zoom call. All this information is just being fed into the sales team within an environment that they're working in all the time. And again, having that absolute seamless migration of all those volumes of data that's being collected across all these channels, and then delivering them into something that's actionable for sales teams is, the full cycle of what, most Mark CMOs we work with is their goal after, a couple of years of kind of pulling their hair out, implementing these kind of disparate systems and not being able to integrate them. So having this data to hand and pushing it to the sales team is, probably, the most important thing an asset manager or a fund manager needs to do to really justify the spend on marketing. Otherwise, let your sales guys call people from A to Z, Z to A, somewhere in the middle, and just be random about it, which is not really the plan. So with that information, now available within your CRM, that's pretty much it. That is the end of that journey, that journey where, you're doing all this marketing activity, you're collecting all this data. How do you analyze it? How do you integrate it and then pass it to the sales team? And again, see what's working and what's not working. Are the analytical skills that you just need to put together. And none of it is data science, right? It's not data science. It's all kind of available within the tools that are demonstrated. And, the one thing, when people talk about data science, so my dad was a data scientist, I'm a data scientist, my son's a data scientist. Keep the trend. There's not enough data that fund managers generate to make any AI algorithm or to make any machine learning algorithm remotely effective. So that's why, tools that are built for big data like seismic and stuff like that, bulkhead or something like that, thunderhead, they just don't work. And invested and the things like journey orchestration that Adobe talk about and stuff like that, it just won't work because there's just not enough volume of people visiting websites and generating that data. So that's why keeping it simple, keeping it basic, and just kind of following the things that I mentioned is what a lot of our clients find incredibly useful. So I hope I've distilled that. If you want some more distillation, I'm available. If you want to have a chit chat with me, again, it'll be available on the replay. You can book some time with me. If you want my book, you can ask nicely. I don't know if I'll send you a few spare copies. I have. And yeah, the book was all about marketing to the invisible investor, because investors now are invisible. We're not, it's changing a little bit, but, people are still engaging more and more over digital channels, and it's finding out who these people are. So there we go. So I hope you all found that useful. Again, thank you very much for being generous with your time and, allowing me to share my thoughts with you. Yeah, if you've got any questions, please fire away. Is there anyone in the house, or have I just got in the way of your Friday? So yeah, you can chat with me if you want, or you can ask a question. No, my pleasure, Tom. Absolute pleasure to spend some time with you guys. Okay, another one's come in. Andrew. We've had a call with Victoria. Well done. A question. How does this digital marketing work with fund of funds? So obviously you are a fund of funds. So the product was actually built at Coronation Fund Managers, and they were a fund of funds house. And what we were doing there is we were looking at which investors in one fund were looking at things that they weren't invested in the other funds. And it was like the ultimate upsell. And, you know, if you're selling multiple funds and, you know, you want to talk to, you know, and especially if you're private equity and you're doing fundraisers, oh my goodness, what a tool. And I'm saying that because it's the best part of our product, which allows you to see who are the people that are investors in one fund that are looking at things they're not invested in. So for fund of funds, yeah, I know fund of funds are slightly out of favor, but multi-asset managers, you know, can use it as well. Ed, hello, Ed. What general trends have you seen this year? So, I mean, other than, it depends, right? So if you're looking at the biggest trend I have seen is LinkedIn direct messaging has overtaken as an effective channel. It's the #1 channel for connecting and building one-to-one connections. I have to say, that's been the biggest trend I've seen this year. The other thing I suppose that I've seen is that, I do tend to see a lot, is people are, I mean, such a good question. That would be the #1. LinkedIn would be #1. I think the other trend is that people have stopped reading what people send out. So that's really, and I've done a webinar on this, and it's available on our website, where people and how emails are laid out is has become a science now, where people have stopped reading, but people are scanning and kind of getting your information out in a way that kind of follows the ways people have started reading content, because there's content overload. The other big trend, again, yes, a big trend. So we did a report with Citrulli, I can never pronounce their name, but what the research showed is that 97% of people, and I'll say people means investors, want to receive information by email, then 60% of them website, and the rest is any other channel. And that's really, really useful to know. And the reason that they preferred email was because it's easy to store all the contents in one place and it's on their machine, and they're not going to the cloud for it. So that was quite a useful bit of information. And most people wanted the information on a weekly basis, but an equal amount of number wanted the information on an as-need basis. So that was, again, really, really quite a little bit of insight that we've seen. The other part, you know, the trend is, you know, people are spending money on marketing spending money badly on marketing, very badly, because, you know, they're just not using domain specialists. But, you know, that the trend is that, you know, we have to be better at marketing and what we do, because, you know, you can't out BlackRock. You know, how are you know, because, the big guys are accounting for, you know, probably 80 to 90% of, you know, inflows. So how are you going to compete for the rest? So it's not about, you know, outspending the BlackRocks of the world. It's about outthinking and out-marketing them. So right. So we've got another question. Paul, we will see us again. Have a great weekend. Thank you very much. In response to your comment in not reading, is personalized video on the rise? Personalized video, I'm not quite sure. Yeah, so personalized video. So people, you know, so my garage does personalized videos for me, and it's a little creepy. We've got a couple of managers who are doing it, and unless the manager is fluid and but it's not scalable. And that's the challenge, Andrew, right? And that is the with fund marketing, bulk mailing, where it's all about, sending out fact sheets, sending out invitations to stuff, is the top of the funnel. When you're kind of at the lower end of the funnel, where you're doing one-to-one marketing, personalized video, I've only seen it in 2 of our customers. One of them does it incredibly well, in as much as they have a guy who is, the fund manager, is very lucid. And they're all set up. So their desktops have things like this, which are little lights and all kinds of gizmos to make it look less amateurish. While the other one's dull as dishwater. But the interesting thing is, who do you trust more? Somebody that's dull as dishwater or somebody a bit more flamboyant? It is, it hasn't caught on. But I would say, look, it may just do, but how scalable is it is another question. But if you get better engagement out of it, it's not a bad thing to do. I'm okay when someone's showing me that my 1999 Italian car is leaking oil. I'm okay, but I don't know how comfortable I would be. And a lot of it is, there is an element with email is that it's anonymous. It's not anonymous, but it's on your machine and you filed it away. I'm not sure, but it's a great question. Great question. And maybe it's a question ahead of its time that we haven't. So I haven't seen enough of it to kind of give you a qualified analytical answer. So yeah, good question. I don't know. Have you done pay-per-clicks before? Where would you start? Helen? Pay-per-click. So pay-per-click. So we compete with people like Adobe, Pardot, Marketo, MailChimp, Constant Contact. Constant Contact spend $1 million a month on pay-per-click. And again, it's like, wow, how do you compete with that? So we've tried, so we are working out, how do we compete with that? So there are 2 parts of that question, Helen. One is SEO, and how good is your SEO and the content you're creating. So SEO is hard to do, but incredibly rewarding when you get it right. Pay-per-click is to use an agency who's specialists in this. And then what you've basically got to do is you've got to start with, what metric do you want for the pay-per-clicks to be measured against? And what's the conversion rate? So, because that will then justify, and there's a science to this, and I'm going to go into it in a second. So what you've got to work out is, what is the cost of a lead that has come to you? So let's say you've spent £10,000 on a Google Ads campaign and you've generated 1 lead, okay? But that you've got enough data that says, if you get 1 lead, the conversion rate is, say, 1 in 10. So you get 10 leads, gets you 1 investor, okay? So effectively, it has taken you, I'm doing the maths, rounding them up, to get that 1 investor from a £10,000 per lead campaign. You've spent £100,000 to get that 1 lead. Sorry, that 10 leads that gives you 1 investor. Now, you could say that £100,000 is a lot of money. Of course, it's a lot of money. But then what you've got to do is work out, what is the lifetime value of that customer. So even though it costs you £100,000 to acquire that customer, what's their lifetime value? So that's the first part, is called CAC, cost of acquisition, so 100,000, and lifetime value. So let's say it's $1 million. So your ratio is 1:10, and that's okay. That's a good ratio. And if you then work with these ratios, it's actually totally convincing to say, well, even though it's cost us £100,000, our CAC to LTV ratio is 1:10. So it's a spend worth making. So that's where you start. You really start with knowing what your conversion numbers are and what you want to get out of it. If you kind of say, well, you know, we're just going to pay Google ads for this, that, and the other, you'll end up where most people end up. And as most people used to say when they go on dates with me, you know, disappointed. So that's kind of the first part of that. And again, you know, it is working with agencies who really are specialists in this, because if we as marketers try and do Google Analytics, I mean, it's hard enough, Google AdWords, it's hard enough understanding Google Analytics. You know, AdWords is another kettle of fish. So it really is working out with an agency. But if an agency is not talking to you about cost of acquisition, lifetime value of a customer, they're not talking about conversion rates, and they're not talking about the, you know, what is the call to action that's required, you know, they're not worth talking to. So yeah, just be aware the budgets are horrific. So it's almost, you know, so we've made the decision to use SEO and some Google AdWords. Most of our clients are not using AdWords at all. They're kind of going, because, you know, just the nature, again, they've just been burnt. Even LinkedIn ads, which are super expensive, have very, very little traction. But if your goal is brand awareness versus demand generation, it's not a bad place to be. So I hope I answered that, Helen, for you. Any more questions? We've still got some people on the call. I don't want to be the guy booting anybody off. So I hope you all found that useful. Oh, we've got another question come through. Oh, no, my pleasure, Helen. Absolute pleasure. And I can talk you through it in much more detail whenever you're free. But yeah, there's a reason Google exists, right? There's a reason Google makes all that money. Interesting enough, Facebook is actually not a bad place to put ads, but again, with all the data protection that's coming in and trackability, you know, that's kind of ebbing away ever so slightly. So going back into Andrew's point, yeah, that's a trend as well. Data is getting more difficult to get, you know, to be made available. Okay, so wonderful, everybody. Thanks again for your time. Looks like there's no more questions. Have a wonderful weekend, everybody, and hopefully see. Well, the webinar replay will go out shortly.